Hello, everyone, and welcome to In Time. My name is Nicholas Lamar Soutter, and with me, as always, is the finally recovering Ansgar Odinson.
Yeah. Well, you can still hear there's recovery happening.
Yeah, but it's good to have you back, my friend. That
Man, it's
was
good to be back. Seriously, I've missed this a lot.
yeah. We missed having you. Um, and it's not. I don't see us doing the show without you, dude. I don't know what there were people like. Go without Ansgar. Is like, then who do I introduce? I can't get past the first 15 seconds. Are you crazy?
I appreciate
It's
that.
anarchy. So, anyways, welcome everybody. We are, as we've always been, simulcasting on our channel on YouTube in time. Actually, I think it's In Time Show. So it's YouTube / In Time Show. We hope you'll go and check that out. We'll drop a link to that also on the GDC, which is also where we are broadcasting. We usually broadcast on both. I'd like to speak about the GDC for just 1 minute. We have very much enjoyed our relationship with the GDC, and would like to thank the GDC, the other mods, and or the directors, and Steve McRae for running the GDC and for allowing channels like ours to broadcast on it. The point of the GDC is to bring together new shows and platform them and give them an opportunity to have an audience, have a voice, and that's what has been done with us. So we have always simulcasted. Yep. We've always simulcasted on the GDC and gotten people from there to enjoy the show and come on over. And we may at some point and in some capacity return and or maybe for something special. But this is going to be our last official broadcast that is going to be simulcasted both on the GDC and on In Time. If you would like to continue watching the show, we hope you will subscribe to us on In Time. And we hope you will also continue to enjoy the GDC. It's been good to us. It's been good to a lot of shows and it has a lot of great content. But this is our last broadcast that will be both on the GDC and on In Time. So
We owe a huge
thank
amount
you.
of our success to the GDC.
Yeah, and shout out to Steve McRae as well.
Yes.
Amazing individual.
Absolutely. So thank you, Steve. Thank you, GDC and the community for having hosted us. We hope you enjoy our last show on the GDC. And we do look forward to continuing to broadcast, usually on Tuesdays and Thursdays, to
I thought we were
Oh,
doing
sorry, no, we moved it. Yeah,
Wednesdays. Yeah.
Tuesdays and Wednesdays, 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and we have with us today Landon Noll, who I think we're going to thoroughly enjoy this. But we hope you will subscribe and join us on our channel. We also do have coming up a week from today the Patreon Hangout. We're going to hang out with our patrons. We enjoy chatting with them. We do this every month. A lot of stuff for the patrons, but we take the patrons very seriously. They contribute to the show. We talk to them about what they would like to see, and frankly, the truth is we kind of take advantage of our patrons. And what I mean by that is we don't come up with nearly as many good ideas as they do. When we talk to them and they say, you should do this, we're like, wow, that's some great ideas. So, and then we get the credit for coming up with all this great stuff. And really, it's the support and help of our patrons. We hope you'll consider becoming a patron and contributing to the show, because it actually really does make a difference.
We have a
appreciate
list.
it.
We have a list of great ideas from our patrons that we can't even get to yet because they're full of amazing ideas. You know.
And if I could put out a plug for you folks,
Please.
if you like this type of content in time, please consider supporting them. These sort of things that are being delivered to you for free are only going to exist if you participate. The way you participate is to contribute, even $1 a month, right? Just help the content creators that you enjoy continue to create content. It's a crowd-funded set, because and don't, if you don't complain that you don't subscribe to and support the people who bring you content that you enjoy, and consider tipping, sharing, subscribing, and becoming a patron of these fine folks.
Thank you.
And absolutely, super chats also help. And actually, why don't we dovetail really quickly into something that we haven't made a formal announcement on this, but this has been our policy going forward, and I think we're going to make a formal announcement on this. Ansgar, would you like to discuss sort of our policy on advertisers and how we are funded?
Yeah. So we are funded pretty much entirely through super chats and our Patreon, and the reason for that is even as we get larger, we don't want to feel as though anything that we say might be too risky to say for whatever sponsors that we may have. If we lose the basic pretty much every video is going to get demonetized or partially monetized by YouTube anyway, so we're not worried about that. But we don't want to feel as though there's anything that is going to be too controversial, any topic that is going to be too, far out of left or right field to cover, because we're going to lose our sponsor with Dollar Shave Club or whatever, And so by you guys supporting the show and us relying completely on your support, we can feel pretty much fearless to talk about anything. And I think there is a great value in that.
So it is our commitment to as of for that reason, so that we can cover any story we want, so that we have that freedom. It has been our commitment not to accept sponsors of any kind.
Mm-hmm.
And we do plan on formalizing that, but that's our patrons already know that. We've discussed that before. You guys are our sponsors, and we're beholden to you. That's it. And that's our policy going forward. So I think,
yeah, and I say and frankly, if you find things that are entertaining, or how you support the arts, or people that are expressing interesting views, just giving me even just subscribing to them, giving just even a little bit helps, right? So you, the audience, can help shape the on-air ways and social media that you enjoy by just giving a little in there, and becoming a patron. Even at the dollar level, that helps, and it helps you, right? It's in your best interest to subscribe, support, share. So That's
Well,
my
and Thunderfoot has Ansgar is a big fan of Thunderfoots,
I am.
and he's got several thousand, I think, patrons, and if they're at $1 each, it changes how much you can do with your show. And I hope people like this show. I hope they feel it's got value, and we certainly
Yep.
strive to do that. So let's talk. So this is a perfect introduction, Landon. Thank you so much for coming,
You're welcome.
and it's finally we managed to do it. We've had issues connecting, but we've done it, and I'm
Yeah.
thrilled. So could you tell us a little bit about yourself before we start getting into the deplatforming?
Well, let's see. I guess if you look me up on Wikipedia, I'm known in mathematics circles and number theory and prime numbers. I'm an astronomer. I work in the Silicon Valley and do a lot of science and math and cryptography stuff related there. I'm on the Electronic Frontier Foundation's Cooperative Computing Advisory Board. So there is a $150,000 award for the first person to prove primality of a digit, 100 million digits or more, decimal digits. See the rules. But I help EFF. I've been involved in early internet stuff for a very, very, very long time. I started with Bell Labs Unix machines back in 1974. Yes, there was an internet even back before then. So I've been involved in a lot of stuff. But to me, computers are tools that people can use, especially to reach other people and communicate with other people and engage with other people. So I love the type of work that you're doing, because this is why one of the primary functions I think that computers contribute in a hopefully positive way to society.
We're getting
Could you make
a request actually. If you could move your mic closer to your mouth.
Okay, let's do that. See how I can do here, and also I can make sure that I'm up. Is this better?
I guess we'll find out. I mean, I can hear you fine, but we had somebody in the
Okay.
chat request it, so we'll see.
All right, let's see on there, because I'm unfortunately I'm not at the spot where I have my more professional microphone. Here I'm at a lab
Right.
on there, so
well,
hopefully this will be better.
even just that micro inch boost there, I think helped
All
a
right.
little bit. So marvelous. All right. So mathematics, computers. You've had a very long
Astronomy.
history.
Yeah.
Astronomy. Now you have an interesting. Uh, you're known for another interesting tidbit that we happen to be putting you on on YouTube, and you have a lifetime ban.
Yeah, and
From
it surprises people. And in some ways, I think it's kind of a badge of honor, because usually I start off and I say good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on your time zone and latitude, from your friendly secular astronomer, right? I'm not one of these people, and actually, I have never uploaded a video to YouTube. I've never created content on my own. I've been on other people's shows. I've been in chat rooms, and yet I received a strike. But it's an interesting thing about YouTube algorithms that you folks would never have experienced, and which is if you get sort of you've been naughty, right, from the YouTube perspective, you would get a community strike, right, and you can get 3 strikes and you're out and all that, all that stuff that they do. If you are a if you're a user of YouTube, you've got an account, but you've never uploaded content, and you've been naughty, they have nothing that they can do to you. I mean, giving me a community strike saying you can't do anything. So what does when you get a strike and you're not a content uploader is you get banned, right? So even though I have accounts of Google, the YouTube aspect of my Google account was terminated, and I take a principle stand that I'm not going to create stock accounts. I mean, yes, I can go and create another Google account and go in there, but essentially, I'm going to honor the lifetime ban as a badge of honor. got about is gave me a really interesting insight into how YouTube works. And for the record, I'm not a Google employee, even though I was there at Silicon Graphics. We helped design the Googleplex campus when it was the Silicon Graphics campus. And by the way, hint: don't let engineers make architectural decisions, because they do things that architect says that's a bad idea, but they do it anyway. So that being said, I'm make it clear I'm not a YouTube employee. I'm not a Google employee, and so some days I can give you essentially the thing is this: someone flagged one of my comments in a chat. So
Yep.
that
Okay.
chat that's on the side, someone flagged it, and the best we can tell, it was a comment made in jest to a good Aussie friend of mine named Red Eye. And we were making actually sort of a flat Earth joke where we were saying I was claiming, flat earthers that claim that Australia is fake.
Mhm.
And
I've heard that. Yeah.
and so I after what you were saying, the Red Eye, that you're an alleged Australian in an alleged content, maybe that as a joke,
Right.
Yeah.
and someone chose to flag that. Now, whether or not, when you get flagged, whether or not it's legitimate or not, there's an algorithm that goes out, because not every flag turns into a penalty, but there's an algorithm that comes around that sort of says, let's take the most egregious flagging things and send them to people to review, right? Well, first what they do is you get a, you've been naughty, you get this, as many people know, this email essentially says, you have violated the community guidelines, and
Right.
here's a link, not what guidelines you've done, but you violated them. All
Yeah.
right. And by the way, it is true they don't tell you what. And the reason why they don't tell you what exactly you've done is they don't want to get into a legal argument or a verbal argument over the merits of what, right? So
So
they
Right.
they
just
won't. They will not tell you which rules you violated.
correct. And in some ways that's for their legal protection. I mean, that they do
Yeah.
that as a policy. So you will get a you've been naughty, and here's the guidelines, and you look over the guidelines, and if you have a lawyer look over it and you say, well, I mean, they're so broad that, and by the way, they can change any time too. So, but that's your problem. Anyway, now how you get flagged can be a number of ways, right? And a one of the YouTube heroes who supposedly has been trained to look for naughty stuff can say bad video or bad comment. There can be a bunch of just YouTube subscribers that the preponderance of those flags can happen, or the algorithm can deem that the video may be naughty, right? Algorithms are these so-called machine learning things. However it happens, even if it's false or fallacious or a mistake, you get you're in timeout period, right?
Right.
Where you can then appeal. And by the way, here's something: if this happens to you, it's important. You basically get 1,000 characters to respond, right? They'll ask you saying, please type in something. And things that don't work, if you sit there and say, what did I do, question mark, that's going to be your appeal, because you have that one-time chance. Because if you come back and you say, oh, I meant to do da 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 da, they'll say, hey, you only get one response to, you only get one appeal. Don't appeal again, right?
Yeah.
And at 1,000 characters, of course, you may not even know what it is that's been flagged, let alone what rule you violated. But okay, so you get 1,000 characters you can send into the system. But what it means is that you took the time to say, I don't think I've done anything wrong. That goes to a human, right? And a human is presented with about 2 to 3 minutes worth of your stuff. What do I mean by that? Well, the bots go and scour social media. And I'm not talking about just YouTube, but if you are participating in Twitter, you're participating in let's say Facebook, or one of those Reddit or something like that. That basically the per human is given a summary of who you are, and the algorithms look for things that are potentially problematic. So how do I know about this? This is about Australian thing. Well, I had somebody on the inside who said, "Let me just do the 2 to 3 minute little review of you. I'm not going to give you full details, and this isn't going to change things. But here's an example of what happened. And one of the things the algorithm flagged was these chats, right, where I was making parody jokes about Australians, and the answer was that my jokes could be potentially offensive to Australians. Not that I offended Australia, not that it was there, but this is an example of something, right? So imagine what happens if end time gets flagged, and what happens is that everything you've done that's accessible on social media is then examined, in mass by algorithms, and a bunch of things are shown up, and the human has to sit there and say, nope, yep, nope, yep, nope, yep. And it's like a credit reviewer getting a credit score, and they're doing thumbs up, thumbs down. Well, if you get enough thumbs up of your PO will be
of your social media profile. So they're basically
yes,
judging your entire social media profile.
and in 2 or 3 minutes, right? And if you're a big content creator, it's there. Now, of course, there are exceptions to it, because if let's say for example, someone were to flag a certain president of a country, and that person gets brought up, there are probably algorithms that sit there and say, don't you dare do a community strike against this political leader. So there are also
Right.
there are some people that are more equal than others, right? But
So Trump can violate loads of Twitter policies.
Well, not
and
just
nobody
that.
can-
You see really big YouTubers, particularly ones that are big corporate sponsored, able to get away with things that nobody else can.
because your presence is evaluated, right? And so what they'll do is if the humans who's spending that time, why 2 or 3 minutes? Well, because they have many, I don't know what it is, hundreds of these flagging people happen a day, maybe thousands. They only have so many people to do those reviews. They're not going to spend 15 minutes watching a video. They're going to have snippets of things, right? So, for example, algorithms might try to figure out if you said a word which is deemed offensive, like the fabled N word, right?
Right.
And so you'll get somebody who will sit there and say yes, no, yes, no, yes, no. And if you get enough, yes, this is a problem. If it rises to a level, your appeal is denied, and you're bounced out of there. Now, if you're famous enough, if you are civic enough to the business, there are other processes that can come into play, and we see that with certain people, and that can help you or hurt you depending upon who you are. But again, it's a mass process. So in my case, there were enough things where it was deemed potentially offensive to Australians, because I was sort of parroting this flat Earth, Australia thing, and so Red Eye actually gets to go around and brag and say, "I got Landon kicked off of YouTube." Right? More power to him. No, so that's now. I could have gone through and used connections at Alphabet to try and override that, but I chose not to. I said, okay, I'm going to accept the lifetime ban, and so I don't. I'm not allowed. And by the way, when I'm watching a YouTube video, it'll pop up and say, "Would you like to subscribe for free?" Blah blah blah. And if I go and click on that, it'll say, "You're not allowed to have an account on YouTube because you were naughty once."
Wow.
Wow. Yeah. So you can't. But I wanted to point out that is the kind of content that we here are unafraid to platform somebody who's been banned on YouTube, and we here at ansgarodinson.com are completely unafraid of the consequences of of having done such a bold action. Just want to make that
But
clear.
but again, make it clear. I've never uploaded content to YouTube. I'm not a content creator. I actually had no interest in doing it because I prefer professionals like you do the content that I can enjoy and supporting it as opposed to doing it myself. But that's saying no. But ironically, had I been an uploader, if I had done 2 or 3 videos or something like that, then they would have given me a strike, right? And I would have
Yeah.
been prohibited from uploading for how many days or whatever the thing is. I mean, that's kind of an ironic thing in that sense.
It seems so weird that the ban would be lifetime. It just
For
seems
Well,
for
so.
well, that's sort of it's like when you get your third strike, um, then your count is terminated, right?
yeah.
And now why do I say a lifetime ban? Because I'm not going to play the game of creating another sock account and showing up,
Right.
right? In fact, it is a case that if Susan came back and begged, saying, "Would you please take an account?" I would decline, right?
So but now isn't this their customers that they're blocking? Just so I mean,
Well, who do you think is the customers? Who is the customer of YouTube? This is an important, I think, important point you've raised. Right?
Yeah.
Who are the
Um,
customers?
Customers would be actually the people that are benefiting from the data.
Yes. So, for example, advertisers that are
Mhm.
are are one of the customer sets.
We
And
actually the people watching YouTube, we're the product.
absolutely, that's ding, 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 ding. That's the deal, right? Um, the the social media, your social media presence is information which is analyzed and it's sold to customers, right? For example, ads, right? To try to add to figure out what you're doing. And so what you watch. By the way, this is something that I was told is they take into account the videos you watch as well as you, because again, it's your social media activity that they have access to, right? So if you are sitting there, let's say, for example, you're sitting there, you're watching neo-Nazi stuff, right?
yeah, yeah.
And you make a comment about Jews, even if it's in context okay, that might get flagged, and they look at you and you say, obviously, a Nazi sympathizer, and
Even if you were
that
watching this stuff possibly for research.
yes, and so researchers have been banned because they're researching the wrong stuff, right?
I'm a writer. I've actually had that problem as well, and I was doing a book on um, angels, demons, the whole 9 yards, which I'm an atheist, but it was important for the work. So I got a copy of the Satanic Bible. I got all this sent to, and my wife is freaking out because we're getting flagged by, between that and my JFK research.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm gonna be, oh joy. Well, and of course they know, because once you're logged into Google, now Google is interesting because it's ostensibly to help you, but once you've logged in, you stay logged in the entire time. So you quit your browser, you come back, you're still logged in, and you're logged in across all of Google's
yeah.
properties, which would include YouTube, right?
Yes. And by the way, it doesn't matter if you quote say, well, I don't use my real name and I don't have my real city and my birthday. So they don't care that the information you give them about you is false. They care about your activity
Right.
and what you watch, when you
Whatever your
watch,
online identity is.
even if you're watching, for example, because when you watch a video, they know when you've watched it, when you clicked away, right? So they can see that is valuable information. So the customers and people who are advertise using that information to advertise and try to target advertise and to try to say people who watch videos from National Geographic are more likely to go on cruises for Princess Cruises or whatever it is. And so
Right.
Princess Cruises will give you targeted ads, right? So the customers are people who purchase that information, such as companies. By the way, also another thing, governments are a big customer of social media, right?
Yeah, it doesn't
Um,
surprise me.
I mean, Snowden's revelations about mass surveillance have been very revealing. Although to some of us it was kind of obvious it was happening. But let me give you this thing. The government doesn't need a search warrant to go and buy from a social media giant information about people. Right? They're just on the free market buying stuff. So government agencies are also customers. You are the product that are being marketed to groups, companies, governments, so forth. That's why social media is valuable. I mean, that's because think about it. How could YouTube make money? Right? They're doing all this, serving out content for free and allowing you to upload for free. How is that a business?
Yeah.
Right? It's not YouTube is not a charity thing. I mean Google spent was it $1.5 billion to acquire YouTube, and because the behavior that you have, that you can see, and what people are doing gives you insight. So even though you think you're being anonymous, right? Effectively, what they've done is they've tied the entity that has a behavior to a product that they then go and try to sell. And by the way, Google's competing with Facebook as another entity. Microsoft, LinkedIn is another entity. Again, I'm trying to understand Twitter, another thing, because again, if it's free, most likely you are the product being marketed to customers, which are the recipients of this stuff. So where does it come back to being banned? Well, if you're a customer of YouTube, you might not want to have, let's say, and you say you're a customer because you pay for advertising. Maybe you are concerned that advertisement might show up on a channel that has a known atheist, right? Someone who's an atheist, right? And let's say you're a quote Christian family values thing, and all of a sudden this ad being shown up as somebody who's a avowed atheist, right? They'll sit there and say, well, I can't have that, right? And so they become an upset customer. So YouTube tries to curate the products, you and your social media, to the customers who are advertisers, governments, interest groups, that sort of thing.
I want to bring up actually, it's slightly off topic, but reasonably close to it. So you've heard about about what Target did. Target had successfully and accidentally predicted that a teenage girl was pregnant before her family knew. And so what happened on this, and there's an article, Forbes has an article on this, but this was a famous one, which was, so every time, of course, that you go shopping, they track what you're buying, where, and then they make predictions based on that, and then they'll send you out flyers and whatever it is you need. Based on a teenage girl's change in shopping habits, Target was able to conclude that there was an 87% chance she was pregnant, and then started sending her and her family, where she was living, discount coupons for baby merchandise, car seats, strollers, the whole 9 yards. Now the father got upset and contacted Target and said, why are we getting all these advertisements for all this stuff? And they said, well, this is what we thought would be appropriate for you. And he said, but there isn't a child here. Well, stop sending us this stuff. And he complained, and he took it up the chain, because he got really upset because I kept getting this material. He took it up the chain, and then finally they said, our data suggests that somebody in the family is pregnant. And that's how he found out that his teenage daughter, 19 years old, was in fact pregnant. Target knew before he did.
Yes. Now, by the way, in stores, not just Target, Walmart, unless those sorts of things, they track customers inside the store. How do they track them? Well, there are several things. Most customers have a cell phone. Right? Even though you're not making a phone call, the location, your cell phone, this thing you have, is telling a cell tower where you are and who you are. And also they have cameras in there, not just for trying to deter theft, but they can also see, here's a customer, and they go over and look at this.
Let me,
So
let me
what you
just
go
add
through and
that if you
look at the store, and what you look for, even if you don't buy anything, tells the store something about you and your
well,
interest.
let me just add that if you go on Google, many stores are completely mapped out in Google Maps, and Google Maps can actually track you throughout a store and know what shelves you're going to.
Yes.
Well, and this is why, for example, when I go on to Pornhub, what I like to do, I've said too much.
Yeah. So the fact that, let's say they discover that you rarely go down the aisle with soda pop and and Coke and that sort of thing, and instead you're going down the health food aisles, means that they're going to try to sell to you, quote, more healthy products, right? If you're going to the diet aisle, right? That's information. Even if what you're doing is you're lingering, right? You're looking around, you're lingering, and you catch your eyes a little bit more, because they can tell what you looked at and where you've lingered.
Hmm.
Again,
Yep.
your behavior in public is a product being sold to
Yeah.
customers who are advertisers trying to understand. And maybe the customers might be a matter of saying that we find that people who go and buy, let's say, chili with meat
Hmm.
are more likely to want to see advertisers with NASCAR rating. I'm making this up, right? But
Yep.
that's kind of the correlation stuff. So they have observed people who then buy maternity clothes and so forth, and their behavior 9 months prior, and they can see behavior that shows pregnancy.
Well, I have had the experience of going to some place like Home Depot, buying a couple things, and then when I get home and I get on the browser, my browser has advertisements for what I just looked at Home Depot.
I know. And for
Yes.
Amazon, if I go on Amazon and I think about something, but I'm just like, you know what? I don't think I'm going to get that. And then later, I'm even on Google, that thing will pop up
Yep.
on my, yeah. And
Yeah.
that started happening like a year and a half ago. So that's not even a brand new thing. So this is extraordinarily aggressive and serious data processing.
But that's part of your
Um,
stuff. So if you are a pyromaniac and interested in chemistry, you could
mhm.
be put on a terrorist watch list because you didn't buy anything, you didn't build anything, but you lingered too much in the interesting stuff aisle.
Right.
And again, if they buy it, they don't need a warrant. They get around that legal requirement.
Probable cause. Yeah. They can have probable cause bits, right? So now the problem is these algorithms are not perfect, right? And then people get caught up. So in my case, I don't know if it's a troll flagging me, if it was a random chance, it was a bad algorithm thing, and then a human spent 2 or 3 minutes looking at my online presence, and they said, well, you seem to not like the monarch, right? You're not fans of a monarchy, and you're not fans of pirates. And they said, well, that's true. And you make fun of this alleged Australian being an alleged continent, and that could be offensive to Australians. So, um, you know, I got enough
You
flags and I'm banned. But again, I made it clear to YouTube, I will not accept an account, right? So
Yeah.
so I'm not going to sock account there. Moreover, I'm not going to use connections in Google to get my account back. What I have done, by the way, is I have had discussions at Alphabet saying you need to be very careful about monopoly status of YouTube.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Right? What I've done to content creators is I made it clear, if you want my continued patronage, you need to be multi-platform. I'm not saying don't ban, do content on YouTube. I'm asking people to be multi-platform, multi-channel. Don't be dependent upon a single channel. And I get people say, yeah, but that YouTube's the only game in town. That to me suggests that there's a potential problem of monopoly status.
Well, Nick and I have actually had a discussion about how YouTube, if in fact the big three, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter, basically have a monopoly on the most powerful forms of public speech that have ever
Hmm.
existed on the planet.
Yes.
And they have an unregulated, this is what scares me, is they have an absolutely unregulated power over who can speak, what they can say, and how they can say it.
Yeah.
That's terrifying to me. That there are
Yeah.
no
And by the
checks and
way,
balances.
absolutely. And by the way, for the Americans, the First Amendment protects you allegedly against the government. It does not. First Amendment does not protect you
Nope.
from Twitter saying you're to go away.
Right.
Yeah, so and that's a common misunderstanding about the First Amendment, which is, so you do have a right to free speech, but nobody has a requirement to platform you. So the government cannot uh, stop you from exercising a right of free speech, but a private company has no obligation, even a publicly held company has no obligation
Well, no,
to
there are
platform you.
publicly held companies that do. As an example, communication utilities have
Mhm.
to uphold because they are utilities. And which is why I think that these big three need to be considered communication utilities, because it's hard to argue how powerful these platforms are in even things like our general elections.
Yes, and I think there's laws are going to be evolving around that. There are laws that evolved around the strip mall,
Hmm.
the downtown community mall, where people wanted to go in and distribute, literature on behalf of a religious organization or a political organization, and mall people said, you can't do that here. We don't like you. And of course, they come back and said it's a public space.
There you go.
And so now what the malls do is it says we disclaim what they're doing. They're not doing it with auction, you know,
Right.
blah, blah, please don't patronize them. Well, it's possible that online entities, online malls, may need to be considered in that same light.
Yeah. Yeah, and and even if they want to do something like, okay, we're gonna tag this tweet as we do not endorse this tweet. We think this person's full of crap, but we're legally obligated to keep it up. You know what I mean?
Yes. Yeah. So so there's a business also. One of the other problems is that social media is international, right? And so your rights in let's say United States or Canada are not the same rights you might have in a place like Spain. So if in Spain let's say for example, pick a topic, you start advocating for the rights of Catalonia to be more autonomous.
Right.
The Spanish government might take offense of that. And you might discover that on a tour to Europe where you come into a place like Barcelona and the Spanish authorities say, yeah, no, get out of here, right?
Hmm. Yeah. That is an issue where we're seeing that not just on social media, we're even seeing that in our entertainment media, where a lot of entertainment agencies are willing to censor for the most draconian countries, especially those with a lot of money, but they're censoring everybody else on behalf of that country so that they can get into that country's market.
Sure. And then countries are interested in their for example customers that are
Hmm.
buying social media information because the citizens demand, hey, we want to know if someone's about ready to do something terrible, so they demand the police agencies, so forth, protect them. And what do? Well, they use um, social media information. They use face recognition cameras on the street, automobile detection, all this sort of stuff to build aggregate profile and try to target the most likely suspects. Right? And some of those are actually quite surprising. Just like the girl who was pregnant and Target sent that information. They also look at people who are potentially, bank robbers or drug dealers or whatever, to look for behavior. By the way, I think what Target did on that thing is that they're a little bit more sensitive to marketing maternity stuff to somebody. They try not to be as obvious
Well,
there,
yeah,
but they still do that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, they try to be better. Well, and you had mentioned so that there's going to be some more regulation, and I think we've pointed out a couple of ways in which that might be able to help, but I'm concerned that more regulation could also make things worse
Yes.
significantly.
Yes.
So do you have some examples or specific concerns about that?
I do. If, for example, you say we've got to target, go after terrorists and terrorist sympathizers, then if it turns out that you have the wrong kind of friends, according to somebody, you can be guilt by association. So you can find that to be the case. But something as simple as a bank was going to give you a potential home loan, and they're going to look at your credit risk. It's not just do you have the income, but who you are suggests whether you're a credit risk or not. And being a potential criminal is one of those things. Getting a job with a company, it's no longer the case that you have they have somebody that does a search and sees whether or not you have a arrest record. A company looks at who you are. They buy the product that is the information about your thing from the. It's no longer the credit reporting agencies like TransUnion, Experian, Equifax. It's Google, Facebook, Twitter are the type of companies that they buy information about to know whether or not you're a prospective employee. So you may be denied employment or don't get a job because the social media information about who you are might be deemed to be a problematic employee.
Right.
You get fired from a company, you go on social media and you bitch about your job. That is a set of red flags that your next potential boss might use to say, I don't want trouble from that employee. I'll pick somebody else.
Yeah. Well, by the way, it's Andring Person send us a $10 super chat. Thank you. Said that anyone who would ban you needs to have their head checked. She says, shaking my damn head. But you had also brought up to us in the before we started the show, there was some new regulations coming out from the FCC.
Yeah, so the American Federal Communications Commission has decided to become more aggressive in the Child Online Protection Act, and this is in particular. There's a video I would encourage people to watch. I don't know if we can promote that video or not.
Yeah, we linked it in the description.
We put it in the it's on the In Time show. It's not on the GDC, but on In Time, the link is right up at the top there of the description.
I would highly encourage people to watch that video. It'll start off with a member of the SEC, one of the board members, talking about that they're going to target YouTube. In particular, they're going to look for YouTube content creators that are deemed to be child, that children might watch, right? Not that they're doing a child targeting children, but that the children might be attractive to watch. And if that content is deemed harmful, that if, for example, the business about that the YouTube is collecting information about who's watching your video, including children, and then it turns out that video is deemed harmful, then you can end up with a fine. And fines are up to like $42,000. So here's the type of logic that and I'm not making this up, right? We have a nice dapper gentleman with a wonderful hat.
Thank you.
Smiley face, lovely beard, and someone sits there and say, oh, it's Santa Claus in black hat, right? And watch. And then you say a naughty word. The FCC says, well, you're pandering to children and you're having offensive speech, so we're going to fine you. And they specifically targeted YouTube as being the in the content market, and that's quite troubling to there. Now, there's a lawyer that goes into much more detailed analysis of this. But don't think that we're not targeting children particularly because we're discussing serious topics. That's not an excuse. It's the appearance of your ability to attract children and having things and even if it's not FCC targeting you, YouTube has responded to this because the FCC, you see that the FCC board member has made it very clear to YouTube, come January 1st, when these things regularly go into effect, they're going to be scouring them because they're the gold mine of stuff. He said it, it'd be like shooting fish in a barrel. And YouTube is going to enforce and police things. I have had a discussion with a lawyer regarding another content creator who does nice comedy, and I've had discussions with him, a lawyer, and the lawyer's recommendation is your best defense is to mark all of your content as mature audiences only, because in theory what YouTube's supposed to do.
Oh, he's been
That,
YouTube got him.
yeah.
Oh, here we go. He's back.
I'm sorry.
We lost you for a sec.
Okay, so your best defense is to market, to mark your videos as, let's say, mature audience only, and count on YouTube attempting to verify their people logging in.
It would seem to me that someone else suggested you could put a splash screen in front of your content saying may not be suitable for children.
Yes, and that's what those things are. But understand that YouTube is going to be concerned about people jumping in the middle, right? Because again, people can mark the middle of your video as something funny and share it on social media, and children
Right.
come over there. So now, what this means, by the way, and YouTube actually loves this, is that if you don't log into YouTube, if you don't log into Google, then they have no way of knowing whether you're, let's say, underage. And so any restricted content becomes banned. So unlike me, I can watch YouTube by just going into a browser, except if that content is age restricted, because I log in, I can't prove my age, and so I can only see kid-friendly stuff, I guess. But even if the FCC does not get you by a fine, YouTube is going to be using that as an excuse to much more aggressively curate their content on there. And people will, if you think you're going to suffer now on YouTube's rules and regulations, wait until this comes forward. But I will give. Let me give YouTube at least a little bit of a problem. The numbers vary, but they claim that YouTube claims that 300 hours of video per minute are uploaded to their site. Other people say it's more like 72. So let's say 72 hours of video every minute get uploaded. It would require nearly over 4,000 people to constantly watch everything showing up. So and you say, well, they can't do it 8 hours a day, so you have to do, let's say, 4 shifts of 6 hours, because who can watch video for that long? So now you're talking about something on the order like 25,000 people just to watch at the current volume everything on there and making a judgment. They can't do that. That's the scale of YouTube is too beyond that. So that's why these algorithms come into play. And these algorithms make a mistake, and they say, oh, person with top hat, kid friendly, said a naughty word, ban, right? That's the type of, and you think I'm making a joke, that's the type of thing that YouTube is, because YouTube is going to get is hit with fines. I mean, the FCC is fined YouTube so far, and they've let YouTube know that come January 1st, as regulations come into place, they're going to hit them heavy and hard. So expect YouTube to be protecting their products, as they sell them to their customers, advertisers, governments, that sort of thing. And so, unfortunately, it's going to get worse. But do watch that video. The lawyer there goes into much more detail. And even if you think it can't happen to me, I mean, I didn't upload content, and it happened to me. So don't think I just watch, right? Because you're a product that are going to be impacted.
Well, and they pegged you as an anti-Australiite. So that's a good example of, once again, the algorithm working well. And as you had pointed out earlier, now, so there's actually, in some sense, there's actually almost no recourse. I mean, yes, you can appeal, you get 1,000 characters, but since and this is where this gets a little insidious, and I think I hesitate to use the word clever, but it makes a lot of sense. Because they're not telling you specifically what you violated, there's no way to make an argument that can be sustained that they are right or wrong. So they hold all the power, and again, there's no recourse. And this is why actually now this is starting to make a little more sense to me, why you are sort of honoring it and won't do an end run. Is it seems to me like it's almost making a point, which is
activism.
You are the average person in this case, and the average person has absolutely no power, no recourse. And as the FCC is now going to really, it looks like, turn up the heat on YouTube is going to, especially where money's involved, going to err on the side of caution, which is to say, probably, I would assume, make it even harder for you to determine what you've done wrong and why.
Yeah, and again, make it clear. I've made it clear to my friends in YouTube and Alphabet. Please do not intervene on my behalf. Moreover, even if Susan came to me and begged me to take my account, I would not take it. Right? I'm done with YouTube. So not only I say YouTube gives a lifetime ban, I've given a lifetime ban on logging into YouTube. Right? And unfortunately, as they force people to be more age restricted or to flagging their content as being potentially unsafe for children, I will get less and less views on that. That's one of the impacts. But I feel for content creators like you that are trying to have mature discussions where you don't censor yourself, because if you say something which someone takes offense at, and there's sufficient, so you think of it like you get a credit score. It's like your credit score, where your social media score, if it gets low enough, then they go through and do a sweep. Now, how to do the sweep? YouTube only has so much bandwidth to examine cases and send out cases, right? We don't quite know how many people they flag per day, but it's based upon the ability of people to process those flagging, right? It's rate limited by YouTube itself. So you have this. Think of this as like your credit score, and they say, well, how many people we have on staff today flagging? Let's say 500 people. Okay, we're going to take the 500 lowest scores, send them naughty notices.
Yep.
And then those people have 1,000 characters to appeal. Those that don't repeal, they're gone, because let's say they're sock accounts or something like that. Those who appeal go to somebody that might spend a minute, 2 or 3 looking at your social media product, looking at you as a product, and giving thumbs up or thumbs down on potential things that the algorithms flag. And if you get enough thumbs down, you've got a strike, or if you're not a content creator, just a watcher, a ban.
Now, what I find interesting is this is actually roughly how, if I recall, and you may know better than I, but if I recall, this is actually roughly how the FCC first got its start. Now, the FCC was not necessarily empowered to ban content based on preference and based on religious protections, anything like that. But it was a religious organization, and I forget which one, but it was, I believe, a Christian religious organization that pushed hard for the FCC to start, quote, protecting the children, which is exactly what's going on here, and that started to recognize the sort of, first of all, the moral obligations of a particular religion, in this case Christianity, where you're not allowed to commit blasphemy on the airwaves and any number of other things. And the FCC was not originally created to do that. Is that correct?
Yes, I mean and it was born out of the fact that you had this thing called technology called radio, where anyone can put up an antenna and broadcast whatever frequency, it basically turned into chaos. And so
Mhm.
FCC was part of the US stuff. There's also ITC, International Telecommunications Commission, that has deals with problems like in Europe where the radio waves leak over the border quite a bit, and they came up with international standards of how to regulate the airwaves. Um, and so Federal Communications Commission started off really trying to police radio and radio operations.
All right, so so this is just me, but it seems to me like the FCC has been engaging in overreach for at least 20 or 30 years, and
Mm-hmm.
now they're starting to go into YouTube. What in your mind would be the ideal legislation that the FCC or the U.S. government would enact on YouTube that, or just media platforms in general, that would protect people and help spur growth of the industry?
Um, That's a good question. One, let me put out a couple of things. One of them is to treat them as common carriers, right? To say, okay, but as a common carrier, it means that they can't sit there and say, we don't like you. You can't show up in the mall and push your religious material, right? They have to have a regulated. You have to have a regulated public space, but you can't be prejudicial against content you don't like. Much like, for example, a telephone company can't sit there and
Yeah.
say, well, you can't say that naughty word over your telephone, right? No one finds a telephone company if you say the F word in a conversation with somebody else, even if you
Yeah.
intend to be offensive, right? But if you say the F word over a public radio station, then the SEC gets in there. So I think having a maybe a treat them as a utility and having them have obligations like a utility might be better. What do you think?
That's been my idea. I think they should be treated as a communication utility, Es- especially considering the role that these platforms now play in our public discourse.
Yes.
Well, that's why net neutrality was actually, for me, that whole debacle. I mean, that should absolutely be, that should not have been overturned. That should still
Yes.
exist and is a staggering nightmare. But that is an example of, uh, once again, the idea that the industry is going to regulate itself. That's been demonstrated time and time again to
Well, let me
be
tell you
a very
something.
poor idea.
Already on my cell phone carrier, because of the loss of net neutrality, instead of just selling you an internet plan and you get to use the internet however you want, you specifically now have to pay extra if you want to stream video. You have to pay extra if you want to be able to play games on the internet. They are now charging a la carte for every single service you use on the internet.
Yeah. And they make the arguments. This is done at the networking level that, well, in order to give you voice quality stuff of a conversation, you have to have a low
Yeah.
time loop. In order to do
Bullshit.
video, we have to have a certain bandwidth. So they reserve this bandwidth, and you pay for that feature, right? As opposed to merely it's a network pipe, use it as you want. That's
It's almost like you go to buy a car, right? You buy the car. Oh, but you want to use the side mirrors that are there? Well, that's gonna be extra. Oh well.
you want to commute with a car? Well, you have to have a special extra fee to use it during commute hours.
Right. Right, exactly. Oh, you also want to drive this to school? Oh, well, that's gonna be
Right.
extra.
Now, understand what that means is if you say that an entity like YouTube is now a public utility, a public space, it does mean that there will be people that
Yep.
you don't like their message, that will be broadcasting. So
Neo-Nazis.
pick whoever you don't like and say that person's awful, and say, do they have the right to do that? Now, there is still, the Supreme Court does have the nuanced crowded theater argument, right? Um, you can go down to the mall and set up a store. You can't do it right in front of the store to block the aisles, right?
Right.
But they have spaces where you can set up. And you may be a religion that people don't like, but you have the right to do that. Now, on the other hand, if you, as a part of your religion, you advocate, committing mass violence,
Right.
then they can say, shout at the theater stuff. So
Well,
there's a
that's
real slippery slope there.
well, I don't think see that's the line. Like if somebody wants to create a YouTube channel and they want to talk about how they think, the Jews are behind every horrible thing that's ever happened in history, right? I think that should be their right. I think they're a piece of crap, but I think that's their right. The moment they say, however, I think we should go kill, or hey, let's go kill, the moment they're advocating, they're actually doing a call to action. That is
Exactly.
no longer freedom of speech.
And you're right. I think that's a really important distinction. We have a problem, however, in the society is that some people believe that for some reason they have the right not to be offended,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And so if I say something, let's say about climate that offends them, or gender that offends them, or whatever, right? And they're offended, they feel as if they've been attacked. So they use your argument of violence to say, well, you are violating my basic core entity because you don't recognize my pronoun, or you don't recognize this thing about climate. And so you're violating, you're committing violence against the earth. They use
Yeah.
those things to try to slip into the, person is there recruiting someone to do a terrorist act.
Right.
And so you still have to have rational people in play. How do you then do that with a platform like YouTube that has, hundreds of hours per minute of content being uploaded all the time, right? How do they police that? The best thing they can do is to say, like the telephone company, we don't listen to every telephone conversation and stop conversations with that are bad.
Right.
When someone calls up and makes let's say a bomb threat against a school, they don't sue the telephone company for not stopping the telephone call. They just say the
Right.
telephone company is a common carrier, and the person who said it is at fault. That's what I
Yeah.
think they have to do with YouTube. But YouTube can't turn around and say, okay, we'll regulate that. But if you say something wrong about a political group, or about gender, or about you offend a snowflake or whatever, we'll ban you. They can't have it both ways. You
Yeah, I'm
can't
with you.
say we'll be public as long as you're the right type of public.
Yeah, I'm with you.
The
I'm
big
with you.
thing I would think, and this is my message back to the Alphabet founders. This is back to Susan. Be careful that you are not running into a monopoly status. And I mention this because in my when I first got my lifetime ban, I said I was going to give my patron several months to say you have to be platform independent by a certain date, or I cut off my funding, because I'm not going to support YouTube only content creators. Here's my new message. This is a new message coming in. Come January 1st, if you are a YouTube only creator, or if you are effectively a YouTube only creator where you put one or two things once a month someplace else, but effectively your own YouTube only creator, I am not going to contribute to you at all. I'm no longer going to contribute to people who are YouTube only or effectively. So that means Steve McRae. That means Pimp
Mm.
Monk. That means I'm going to do stuff. Now, if you look at people, here's how you protect. If you look at someone like Isaac Butterfield, a Australian comedian that gets a lot of people offended, or if you look at someone like Carell, who is outspoken, member of the YouTube community, who was one of the first openly gay talk show radio hosts in a major market, right? You look at what he does. He has a website. He has an app, an Android and an Apple app. He has radios, things he does. He does TV uploads. Yes, you can find him on YouTube as well. Karel, Karel. And if you go to Isaac Butterfield, you can find him on YouTube. But Isaac Butterfield has a comedy circuit. He's doing stand-up comedy. He's doing things that are outside of just YouTube. He's not a YouTube only. So I'm going to contribute to them. But again, I love what Stingray does. But I love, for example, Pimp Monk does. But unless they become something other than a YouTube distributor, I'm not going to contribute at all. No super chats, no PayPal links, nothing. And I feel it strong because I want people to protect themselves from a single point of failure. I don't want this fine show to be shut down from YouTube because you offend somebody or you have the potential to offend somebody. So be multi-platform, be void single points of failure, and try those other places. Content creators, I would say to me, but YouTube's the only game in town, which is what I'm telling Alphabet. You may have a monopoly in the works on your hands. Be very careful. I will also say to Susan, yes, I have been contacted by EU regulators. They tend to be more aggressive against monopoly than currently the states for some reason. You can make a guess. and I'm, if I'm asked to testify to commissions, I'm going to tell them the truth, right? So Alphabet, be very careful about the potential status. YouTube creators, diversify. Do yourself a favor, diversify. And those people that I'm currently supporting, come January 1st, not only will I've already stopped Patreon, but no funds whatsoever for someone who is only a YouTube content creator. You can broadcast on YouTube all you want. That's fine. Don't be a YouTube only creator or effectively YouTube only creator. And it's for your own sake. And I think it's for the sake of others. Diversity, opinion, diversity of channels. I believe in an open marketplace where there's a diversity of platforms to be able to look on. So try to be there. But that's my rant.
I've heard that one before, which is one reason why we've actually already had that discussion on In Time about being on other and simulcasting to other platforms, and we do have the ability. That was something that we took very serious early on, the ability to simulcast. That's how we are simulcasting already, at least to 2 YouTube channels, but it doesn't have to be YouTube channels. We can simulcast to just about anything. We could simulcast to Facebook, we could simulcast to Venmo, to
Minds.
Daily. Yep.
Yeah.
So we've already started looking at what the alternatives are based on that. So
yeah,
I think that's probably a good place then to wrap it up. One thing we would like to do, we don't have Landon for a whole heck of a lot more time. We have him for about 45 minutes. We would like to do an after show.
sure.
So, but we sort of settled on that a little late. So we're going to be transitioning to that in a second, but we've just about got that up. That'll take about 5 minutes to transition to. But before we do that, just a couple of quick things. And Ansgar's, I think, good to go on his end for that, for what he's got. But I did want to say, so if you're on the GDC, like I said before, this is our final broadcast on the GDC. The after show will be exclusively on the In Time channel. That's youtube.com/InTime Show. If you are a member of the FCC, that is youtube.com/Ansgar Odinson Show.
Right, of course.
And yep, of course, that's I'm not gonna that never gets old. But if you want to have a chat with Landon, if you want to ask him some questions, you need to go to our Discord. We normally go through the Discord to just see who we're going to bring into the room, and we hope you'll come in and join us, hang out with Ansgar, myself, and Landon. To the GDC, from everyone here at In Time, thank you for being so accommodating to us and for being so good to us and for putting up with us, maybe almost getting you deplatformed a couple of times.
Yes.
It was all Ansgar's fault.
Of course.
Of course. So thank you all on the GDC, and to those of you who would like to continue, we will be coming back up in about 5 minutes on In Time channel to do the after show. So thank you all very much, and catch you in a minute.
And please support content creators you like In Time. Your support makes content like this possible.
Absolutely.
Thank you.